I guess I've always been kind of like interested in like improvement and stuff like that and coaching. Like I have like a psychological background. So I've got a bachelor's in psychology and then I'm in the master's program for counseling psychology. So I'm an amateur like pool player, but like I play on like championships and tournaments and stuff like that.
Nice.
And pretty much anything that I've been like I've generally been a competitive person for most of my life and for like most things that you can be competitive with you can use basically the principles and knowledge that we know about learning things that we learn through psychology to kind of apply that to how we do things. And a
Interesting.
lot of ways, in a lot of ways, I think that coaching, like very much like the best coaches, people who are very effective at it, are people who are either intentionally or unintentionally using the principles that we have learned like throughout human history to be really good at like teaching and learning things.
So you're saying I should be asking you for advice more often? I think I might have to be picking your brain some. When you talk about what good coaches do, I'm gonna be a little selfish with this question. What do you think? What are some of those things that you see?
Yeah, so basically it kind of comes down to like the old parable of like giving people fish so that is like not as good as teaching people to fish.
Right.
And so like effective coaches are people who are effective at like sparking people to learn and figure things out on their own
Right.
without necessarily giving them the answer to everything.
Right. Right.
um
Right.
that's
Okay.
like one of the first most important things to like that
So,
people often do wrong.
and I guess piggybacking off of that is when you talk about how you've been kind of competitive at a lot of things, what have you learned through your psychology training that's actually allowed you to get better at pool or get better at other things? Because I've discovered that with my coaching as well, but obviously always easier said than done, right? So what's something that you've been
uh,
able to use?
well, one of the first things that I learned that is like how to like direct your competitive spirit. So like a lot of people direct it towards other people and other
Uh-huh.
things, but if you can figure out how to in a healthy way direct competition towards yourself, then you can compete against yourself and you can kind of like run an infinite loop with yourself. Like
Mm,
so like if you compete with other people, you can only do that in certain instances and it's kind of like all or nothing and it can be very defeating or it can be like overly like self-gratifying.
mm-hmm.
But when you compete with yourself, you always win and you always lose. So it's like it kind of should keep you in balance. And as
Right.
long as you're not too unhealthy with it, you can kind of keep doing that over and over.
Okay. Okay. Can you give me an example of how you've like actually used that in like pool? Because if people watch this recording, I think this would be kind of informative for them to kind of hear.
Yeah, so like in a pool game, like this is kind of weird. Like I thought of it the other day, and I thought about how it's kind of like a little fucked up. But one of the ways that I think about like when I play at a professional match, like we're going to actually like play like a regimented rated match or whatever.
Right.
I don't really think about it as if I'm playing my opponent. I think about it as I'm playing me, and I
Uh,
get to do whatever I'm going to do on the table. And then when I screw up or if I fail, basically myself, then the other person kind of gets to do a thing.
right.
And whatever that is, that doesn't actually matter that much. They're just kind of the person that stands there and does things whenever
Mm-hmm.
I fail against myself. And so when you think of it that way, you don't get tilted as much by your opponents and things like that, and you're able to like concentrate on your own improvement and like you can like you start thinking of like, okay, well, how can I measure things? Because like it's a science, right? So it's like, how can I do
Right.
better than I did last time?
Right.
What's like one thing I can look at? And
Right.
yeah,
So it's almost like you have so much agency in your play because the only time the opponents have any input are when you make a mistake. And when you make a
exactly.
mistake is by letting them actually have input. Like if you hit every shot, if your positioning is perfect, like in an Overwatch sense, then you really minimize any input that the enemy has in terms of dictating the team fight. Um,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, I think about it that way in Overwatch too. It's like if you were the one that's like dictating the pace of the match, the enemy is kind of forced to react to
Right.
you rather than
Right.
you reacting to them. That's like
Right.
way harder.
Right, right, and I think the difficulty there, and maybe where it deviates from billiards a little bit, is where you have an idea of how what perfect play looks like, but then obviously it's a team game. So even if you play relatively well, there will be at least instances, fights, games, whatever, where you're not able to carry, you're not able to compensate for your team's mistakes. But that being said, you could still look at the broader picture as a whole, and that's where your impact actually matters, right? Game to game, maybe you get unlucky, but if you're focusing on overall improvement, that's what really matters. And I think that's where like I'm trying to think of the best way to describe this. You could correct me if I'm wrong here, but isn't there some sort of psychology about where younger people slash children struggle with um, delayed reinforcement?
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Yeah.
okay, so like you could do the right thing and not get rewarded for it immediately, and so that they struggle with it. What was that? Was it the donut or the cookie? What was it? Where they like, oh, I'll give you 2 cookies if you wait so and so long, and the kids really
Yeah,
struggled with it, or
I mean,
whatever.
you could do it as simple as like most of the time, like if I was to run that study in like a cog psych lab, then yeah, you would like use like normally financial incentive, like here I'll give you $5 like
Right.
today, or like $100 in a
Right.
week or something like
Right.
that, or whatever
Right.
it is.
Right.
And you can set the ratios and figure out exactly where specific people
That's
lie,
so
and yeah, like
fascinating.
younger people tend to
That's
yeah.
super. That's super weird because it's like that's
And
the
yeah,
thing with Overwatch.
Overwatch, well, games in general are like this, a lot of them, but like Overwatch in specific, like it would be kind of like Overwatch cares about how you play over 100 games, but a
Yeah.
lot of people get like very fixated on how I played these 5 games. Oh, I lost these 5 games in a row. I'm doing this new strategy. Maybe they picked up some new strategy, maybe from a coach like you.
Right.
They're trying to implement it. They start losing more games because they're like improving and it's fucking them up a little bit.
Right.
But they're improving. But then they see that and they look at the small picture and it's like it's the short term.
Right.
But yeah, Overwatch cares about like how did you do over like 100 games?
Right.
That's what it's kind of balanced
Right,
for.
right. And that's why I feel like my most success as a coach has been trying to like build some sort of personal development in the players I'm working with, because you have to be able to build that patience and that long sightedness, because otherwise you're like you said, it's going to be short term, no reinforcement, they give up, and then the coaching was completely worthless, right?
If we're tooting your horn too, like the thing that I think got my attention about your videos was that like you were the first coach I saw who focused on like how important attention is.
Nice.
In yeah, it's like that's actually quite rare. That is you have been experienced enough. Like you said, you've done like 5,000 or 500 hours or whatever you said that you did.
5,000 hours over the
Five
last
thousand
5
hours
years.
of
Yeah.
yeah. So you've probably learned this like through that time. It's like yeah, attention is key. It's like everything. If you don't attend to things, then it's like kind of useless. And
Right.
so
Right. Okay.
most people don't pick up on that.
Okay, that makes me feel good about myself. All right.